How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here with another video. So, of course, it's time for another Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. So, on the last draft preview, we started off on the defensive previews by looking at the top day 3 defensive lineman prospects for rounds 4 through 7 of the 2021 NFL draft. And in this one, we're going to wrap up the linebacker prospects and look at the top day 3 linebacker prospects and wrap this class up. So yeah, enough talk. Let's go ahead. Let's just jump right into it. Let's go. Starting off with inside linebackers. The first one we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Georgia, standing 6'1", weighing 235 pounds. We got Montori Rice. So Monty, he's your prototype pass defense inside linebacker. So he's very good defending against the pass. In terms of strengths, his overall improvement from 2019 to 2020 is a major plus. He stepped up his game in almost every aspect of it, showed better athleticism and processing on the field, can handle both the run and coverage snaps. As a run defender, he does a nice job crashing down, finds the ball carrier. In coverage, he showed promise, he moved well occasionally got put on speed wide receivers and didn't look abysmal. He has capably handled shallow zones and coverages in the flat. In terms of his weaknesses, though, it's likely field is undersized for most schemes without much length as a movement linebacker. He won't be able to drop down to rush the passer off the edge consistently. He has limited versatility. He's unable to disengage from blocks. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Elandon Roberts of the Miami Dolphins. It's definitely, he has a lot of potential for sure, and he's very good in almost a lot of different defensive schemes. It's definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Auburn, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 243 pounds. We got KJ Britt. So for KJ's strengths, he's as stout as they come, packs a mighty punch to go with it, able to deliver big hits, barrels down runners with ease. As a run defender, diagnoses plays extremely well. Where a KJ stands out the most on the field is all on the field calls he made. He points out adjustments for his fellow defenders to make in order to adapt to the offensive formations. That goes a long way. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's short with average length. He's stiff and he's relatively unathletic as a defender, limits him as an open field tackler. He also missed some time with injuries, which limits his exposure to the evaluators. In 2020, he only played in 2 games before he caught a thumb injury, which caused him to miss the rest of the season. So yeah, that's going to be a question mark. Can his hands stay healthy? That's going to be the big question for sure. Is he going to get more injuries down the line? In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Tyler Matakevich of the Buffalo Bills. Has a lot of potential for sure, but can he stay healthy? That's going to be the big question. Definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Texas A&M, standing 6'2", weighing 234 pounds. We got Buddy Johnson. So for Buddy, he's your prototype intangibles inside linebacker. In terms of his strengths, quick processor, has great read and reactability. He's savvy with a nose for the ball. He does an excellent job of attacking gaps, reads the leverage that's given to him by his linemen. And his ability to detour routes with physicality helps him in the passing game. Sufficient tackler, won't fall off any attempts that are cleanly made. He improved as a pass rusher. He also returned with an interception for a touchdown in 2020. So he did get a pick 6. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. He is definitely shit in this bitch. And he's also one of the top sleeper picks in this draft, because he packs the intelligence, position, and the tackling of a future NFL starter. Now, he isn't a high upside player. He will start on Sundays for someone at a great value price. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he won't grab much attention with his range and coverage. He is an average athlete for an inside linebacker. Angles and tackling, they have room for improvement. Hey, there's always room for improvement at the end of the day. And some of his athletic limitations will mean tackling in open field could be difficult. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Tahir Whitehead of the Carolina Panthers. Has a lot of upside for sure, and has all the ingredients to be a future NFL starter and a star potentially in the future. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Boston College, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 230 pounds, we got Max Richardson. So for Max's strengths, he's a tackling machine, can fill up the box score. Reads keys well, can find the ball in his relentless high-energy player, can handle coverage snaps, plays in the shallow zone as well as track if needed in the underneath area. He takes smart angles, can recover well after getting blocked to recover, and can get back into place. In terms of weaknesses, though, even though he can get back into place, he can also get washed out of place and doesn't have the athleticism to make up for it. He can struggle to make tackles in the open field due to stiffness, and he may not have the long speed to be a rangy, undersized linebacker. He was talented as a college player, but many of his traits they may not be able to translate to the NFL. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Hardy Nickerson of the Minnesota Vikings. So he has a lot of potential for sure. But can all his good traits from college translate to the NFL? That's definitely going to be a gamble for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of South Carolina, standing 6'2", weighing 230 pounds, we got Ernest Jones. So for Ernest's strengths, he can really flash on tape. He's a methodical linebacker who's rarely out of position in the run game. He's patient with very solid bursts and closing speed to read plays well, and can meet the running back for short yardage. He has the range to go sideline to sideline, has the power to get off of blocks, has a strong force upon contact, can collide with the ball carrier, can shut down a play at the point of attack. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has great moments, but he lacks polish. His hand usage to get off of blocks is limited. He gets limited push with his hands. He's too easily brushed aside. Still work in progress in coverage. Has the athleticism to handle the coverage, though, but he loses fluidity outside of short areas in coverage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Blake Martinez of the New York Giants. So he has a lot of potential for sure, but still work in progress in terms of coverage and all that. Might take a couple years before he can really do well in coverage. Could be used for like the runner to pass. Definitely maybe someone to take a look at for a couple years down the line. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Northwestern, standing 6'3", weighing 240 pounds, we got Paddy Fisher. So for Paddy's strengths, his coach on the field who made the calls for his teammates pre-snap, he consistently puts his guys in a position to win. So he always knows how to put all his teammates in the best position possible to be successful. Reacts well to what he sees from QBs and blockers. Effective with angles and precisions. High effort player, consistently hustles to the ball, wants to be part of game tackles. So always wants to be part of the play. In terms of the weaknesses, though, he doesn't have the coverage chops to hold up outside of zone coverage in most situations. His lack of athleticism will make 3-down linebacker chores in the pros difficult. Sufficient size for the position, not capable of taking on blockers. He'll get eaten up easily when he's forced to work between the tackles. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jack Chichi of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Has a lot of potential for sure. Always wants to be part of the play. Always can put his teammates in the best position possible to succeed. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure, since he seems like truly a leader of men. And the final inside linebacker we're going to go over before we move on to the outside linebackers, we have hailing out of TCU, standing 6'1", weighing 233 pounds, we got Garrett Wade. So for Garrett's strengths, he has sufficient length for the position. He's quick enough working laterally to evade blockers and create windows of opportunity in the run game. Solid blitzer with closing speed. Processes information quickly. Reacts with immediacy. He has good effort as a tackler. Works hard to get finishes even when he's facing tough runners. He's praised by a lot of his coaches at TCU for his IQ. He quickly adapted to multiple positions and understood the responsibility of teammates on every play. And he also came in as a safety and then moved to linebacker. So he has some versatility and could maybe move around a bit on the defense for sure. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his change of direction of agility is limited. Doesn't move around the field like a safety in the NFL. Struggles to make tackles in the open field with consistency. His lapses with angles will get him into trouble. He's tight-hipped and lacks lateral bursts. He's a decent option on passing downs, but he shouldn't be expected to take on tight ends or cover a ton of ground. He isn't a true between the tackles linebacker. Too easily gets taken out of plays by blockers, reaching the second level and putting their hands on him. But he did get an invite to the Senior Bowl this year, though. However, he was unable to participate in the Senior Bowl after he tested positive for COVID. I mean testing positive for the plague. Yeah, that's totally what I meant. Anyway, continuing on. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. So he has some potential for sure to maybe be a player on passing downs for sure. Not going to be like an every down linebacker. He'll be more like a rotational linebacker for depth. Maybe someone to keep an eye on. Now moving on to the outside linebackers. The first one we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Oregon State, standing 6'2", weighing 250 pounds. We got Hakim Rasheed Jr. So in terms of his strengths, he's a good-looking athlete on the hoof with broad shoulders, long arms, tapered middle, good initial quickness off the snap, can pressure the edge whether rushing out of 2 or the 3-point stance. His best attribute might be lateral agility, his balance, and his flexibility to elude blockers in tight spaces. He can scrape the corner. He's just slippery up close. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's an undersized edge rusher, lacks elite burst to force tackles immediately onto their heels, relying on quickness and balance to slip by a lot of blockers, but he gets blown off the ball too often when blockers are able to latch on. Generates a lot of his production off of so-called coverage sacks. And he has been listed as a player that could disappoint in the NFL. So he's listed as a guy that could potentially be a bust, because in his junior year, he had 14 sacks. Number of sacks he had in his senior year, 0. He's more of a tweener, but he's going to need a great scheme fit to succeed. So the only way he'll cut it in the NFL is if he matches the scheme perfectly and everything. He has every tool to succeed. And like coaching, scheme, everything. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jeremiah Atachu of the Denver Broncos. So he has some potential for sure, but the big key for him is that the only way he succeeds is just on schemes alone. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Penn State, standing 6'3", weighing 252 pounds, we got Shaka Tui. So for Shaka's strengths, he's an expert at cutting in from blocks, keeping his angles tight, needing no room to seize his opportunity, has nice body control and movement that allows a more controlled approach, showcases nice speed and flexibility off the edge, and was producing in a hand-in-the-dirt role despite likely being better suited as a stand-up rusher in a 3-4 set. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a bit undersized for the edge position, doesn't generate a lot of power. He works almost entirely off finesse, which is more concerning given all the weight already added. Like, how much more can he develop? His moves as a pass rusher are underdeveloped and rather limited. With proper development and good coaching, he could become better, but expect a growing process and a number of growing pains. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent linebacker Eli Harold. So he has some potential for sure, but it may take a couple years before he really makes an impact. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for a couple years down the line for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of West Virginia, standing 6'1", weighing 220 pounds. We got Tony Fields II. So in terms of Tony's strengths, he's one of the toughest and scrappiest linebackers in this year's draft class. He'll put himself through a twister to make a play. Strong tackler, hits with bad intentions, great at taking smart angles to the ball, being proactive with his steps. Rarely gets caught out of position, excellent at reading blockers, and adjusting on the fly to react to the path of the ball carrier, so he always keeps his eye on the ball and where it's going. In terms of weaknesses, though, he's remarkably undersized for a linebacker, and his measurables are likely to scare a lot of teams away. Doesn't have the size to effectively take on blockers and hold his ground, regardless of how tough he is. He's an average athlete in the open field, doesn't have the burst or long speed to succeed in significant coverage roles. So in terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Jermaine Carter Jr. of the Carolina Panthers. He has a lot of potential for sure and can battle a lot of adversity to try and make plays and get the job done. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Buffalo, standing 6'3", weighing 250 pounds, we got Malcolm Coons. So for Malcolm's strength, he has good lateral agility, which allows effective attack angles, creates outside rushing lanes most pass rushers can hit. He's a nuisance with his approach to initiating contact and has a quality swim move. He plays with great bend, does an excellent job of cutting angles back into the pocket once he gets on the outside of hip alignment. He's nimble enough to knife through gaps and get penetration. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's not likely to see many reps with his hands in the dirt, doesn't have the size or strength teams will want it at a traditional defensive end role. He's a high-cut player, which will limit his ability to drop his leverage and anchor down. It'll limit his ability as a run defender. He's more of a pure finesse rusher who will struggle if he's asked to play through linemen and win with power. Sufficiently athletic for an edge rusher, but he isn't the type of athlete to succeed in space. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Harold Landry with the Tennessee Titans. So he has a lot of potential for sure. Couple things to work on for sure. He's more like a pass rusher than a run stuffer. So more like for pass rushing down. Someone definitely for maybe rotation and depth for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Florida, standing 6'5", weighing 250 pounds, we got Jeremiah Moon. So for Jeremiah's strengths, he's a long pass rusher with awesome size for a traditional outside rusher. His length's going to play a huge role when it comes to controlling the distance against blockers and shedding effectively. Has good bursts and closing speed when he works to cut off outside runs. Has an excellent tackle radius. Comes to good use in the run game. Has the strength to finish once he gets his hands on. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he doesn't have the experience playing off-ball linebacker. He isn't going to be suitable for playing in space with regularity. He isn't consistent enough yet with technical approach to shedding blocks. He needs to be more consistent with his take-on, so he has to be consistent because consistency is key. He has the potential to get bigger and play with his hand in the dirt, but his high-cut build could make playing with consistent leverage difficult. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Kimoko Toure of the Indianapolis Colts. He has a lot of potential for sure. He just got to be a little more consistent, but still someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Duke, standing 6'3", weighing 235 pounds. We got Chris Rumph II. So in terms of Chris's strengths, he has a lean, lanky frame, plenty of room for additional muscle mass, possesses legitimate NFL bursts off the snap, demonstrates the explosive initial quickness, can blow past offensive tackles, can create instant pressure off the edge, complements his upfield speed with his core flexibility needed to efficiently turn the corner with ability to duck under the reach of blockers while accelerating. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he will be viewed by some as a classic tweener. He was listed at 235 pounds, and it looks it on tape. He has more time, and he'll have more time in the weight room needed to really hit his true potential. He's stronger than he looks, but simply lacks the sand in his pants to hold up when blockers are able to latch on. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Samson Ebukam of the Los Angeles Rams. So he has a lot of potential for sure, especially with his speed. May need to add a little weight to really stand a chance, but still, someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Louisville, standing 6'3", weighing 230 pounds. We got Dorian Etheridge. So for Dorian's strengths, he has a great frame with solid thickness throughout to be able to have his impact felt on point of attack. He was a big leader on the Cardinal Louisville defense. He earned high praise by Louisville's defensive coordinator. He can attack well around the corner almost as a delayed edge rusher. He did so a few times on tape if you want to watch any tape on him for that. He does well tracking the backfield, whether it is a run play or a QB leaving the pocket to scramble. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a bit sluggish when he moves and has limited range and coverage ability. He gets caught on blocks, doesn't have much hand usage skills to break free. Most importantly, he doesn't seem to have a standout trait to really draw a team in on him. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent linebacker Matthew Thomas, so has a lot of potential for sure, but gotta get a little bit better with the hands still. He seems to do very well in getting to the backfield. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Houston, standing 6'1", weighing 225 pounds, we got Grant Steward. So for Grant, he's your prototype intangibles outside linebacker. In terms of his strengths, He's most energetic player on any field. He's a great mover in the open field, plays with excellent motor. His tackling isn't pretty. He's strong and tough enough to finish. He won't dominate man coverage, but he's a survivor who should hold his own against tight ends. If nothing else, he'll make a living on special teams. So he'll be more like a special teams player, mainly against the punt, try and block some punts, maybe make a play. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's undersized. He looks more like a safety. He won't be for every team due to his lack of a natural fit. He's too small to succeed taking on blocks, so he'll need to consistently avoid them. He's maxed out with no room to grow, and potential for improvement is minimal. He doesn't have straight line speed, though, to be a safety. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired linebacker Brandon McGee. So he has some potential for sure, but it seems like for him to make an impact, it's gonna have to be like as a special teamer. And he only played in 7 games last season due to issues with the plague. So can he stay healthy and keep clean and not catch the plague? We'll have to see. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of South Alabama, standing 6'2", weighing 225 pounds, we got Riley Cole. So for Riley's strengths, he's athletic, open field mover, can cover ground in a hurry. He's great fit for current direction of the league, for where the league's heading. He's comfortable operating in the open field, and coverage ability has potential. Has adequate read and reactability, does a good job altering position relative to where the leverage is on place. He's an intelligent player, can take smart angles, maximizes his tools to succeed. His balance allows him to keep control even when it's getting clocked. He's also one of the top sleeper picks in the draft because even though he's an undersized linebacker, he has good awareness and mobility. He's going to need to prove he's strong enough in the run game, but he can survive in the NFL on passing down. So he can be a pass rusher and survive in those passing plays. In terms of weaknesses, though, he's undersized, like I previously just mentioned. Doesn't have that ideal play strength or growth potential to work in heavy traffic. His lack of size, it will lead to lapses with taking on blocks. He lacks agility to take many man coverage reps. He shouldn't be trusted to hold his own on an island. He falls off tackles at times against strong runners. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. So he has a lot of potential for sure, but he's more like going to be like a rotating role to where he's going to be in for a passing downs like 3rd and long situations or maybe on Hail Mary situations to try and get to the QB and force a bad throw. Maybe someone to keep an eye on for depth and rotation. And the final outside linebacker, the final player we're going to go over in this video, we have hailing out of Oklahoma State, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 235 pounds. We got Almond Ogbongbenga. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that last name. It's a tongue twister. It's a hard tongue twister for sure. But anyway, in terms for Almond's strengths, he's an intelligent player, does a good job of finding the ball carrier and tracking, and that's the heart of the game for sure. He's a high-effort player, wants in on every tackle, throws his body around to make plays. In terms of weaknesses, though, he's physically maxed out, doesn't have the type of length or strength that teams will desire, and issues with getting off the block, so limit effectiveness in the run game. His agility doesn't stand out, nor does his coverage ability. His angles are questionable. His change of direction abilities, they don't stand out. He's a limited athlete, doesn't have much developmental potential. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to T. Grace Scales of the Pittsburgh Steelers, so he has a lot of potential for sure, but a lot of the things he have are either questionable or they don't stand out at all. You know, could be maybe someone to keep an eye out for special teams for sure to try and make some blocks on plays. Could be a special teamer in the NFL. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. You know, there are some interesting players to keep an eye on for sure for linebackers, you know, for depth. Even if we do get Micah Parsons at 7 or whatnot, and we don't take one of the big 3 receivers, you know, we can still look at another linebacker for depth for sure in the later rounds. There are some good names to keep an eye on for sure, whether it be on the inside or the outside of that linebacking core. Because the Lions need a lot of help on the linebacking core since the Lions' linebacking core has been pretty dog shit as of late. But anyway, we still got one last draft preview to go this year before we're done with all the draft previews this year. And that will be on defensive backs and safeties. And there's a lot of them for day 3. So bear with me. It's going to be a bit of a long one. So yeah, that's the last draft preview, and you got that to look forward to. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. That's all I got to say. Hail to Outsiders, and hail to great Detroit Master Plan. Peace.